everybody, this is Dr. Shujaat Mubarik. Now we are heading to the new year in a couple of days, that's 2019. And before the beginning of the new year, we thought to have a couple of videos, a couple of things to share with you. Let me introduce myself with you. I am Dr. Shujaat Mubarik. I have done my PhD in Industrial Organization, and presently I am Dean at Muhammad Ali Jinnah University for Faculty of Business Administration and Social Sciences. Although my primary area of research are human capital management, supply chain excellence and international trade. However, my particular research, and I have a kind of a interest in the area of multi-attribute data management, especially analytical hierarchical process AHP, and for that I have conducted a lot of workshops at University of Malaya, Malaysia. I think we have been conducting this workshop for the last 3 years since year 2016. So this particular series would be all about this analytical hierarchical process, in which we will be starting from AHP till to the end, that how we can apply the AHP on the various aspects of the research and the various aspects of our business lives. Okay, so we are going to start today from the AHP. Basically, AHP is for analytical hierarchical process, which comes under the umbrella of multi-attribute data management, MADM. It's also called MCDM, multi-criteria data management techniques. Basically, a lot of time we face a kind of problems when we have to prioritize two kind of variables by each other. For example, I have 4 variables or 4 elements A, B, C, and I want to see that what is the relative priority of each variable, like to represent a certain kind of phenomena. So in this kind of situation, we come across the techniques like multi-attribute data management, in which we can apply our techniques in order to prioritize like that, how much contribution A has, how much contribution B has, how much contribution C and D has. So for that, let me before any delay, I'm going to introduce you what is AHP, analytical hierarchical process, and then I'll be going toward the various steps of AHP there and how that AHP can be applied. We will be also demonstrating you very clearly with the help of the software that how we can use AHP on the various kind of the projects and the various kind of research issues. So first, what is AHP? So basically, analytical hierarchical process is a technique in which we break down the problem into the hierarchy in order to solve it. So for example, I'll try to take this all session with the help of examples so you can better understand. For example, we want to prioritize the various dimensions of human capital. Like a firm's human capital is being represented by the various dimensions. For example, education, experience, skills, training, attributes, stability. So now we want to see that which one of the dimension of human capital has the highest value while representing the human capital, and which one has the lowest. So our goal would be the prioritization of the human capital, that would be at the top, and then it's all of the dimensions of the human capital, education, experience, skills, trainings and all that, they'll be coming down. And if these dimensions have the sub-dimensions, for example, quality of education, type of education, years of schooling, etc., like the trainings that have a various dimensions, those will be coming under the sub-dimensions of this human capital, as you can see back in the screen. So this would be the structuring of the problem. So what AHP is? AHP is a process in which the problem is solved by breaking down into various hierarchies. So that's why it's called the analytical hierarchical process. So AHP is a method of breakdowning the complex or unstructured situation into its various components and parts, and then it's arranged into variables or hierarchical orders. Then the numerical values or the pairwise comparison judgment matrix, our values are assigned to it. Then at the end we are going to synthesize the problem. So this is a kind of a crude definition of the AHP. Nevertheless, once we will be going to have the detailed we'll be discussing the detailed processes, what are the various processes of the AHP. I think you'll be able to better understand that how can we, what AHP is and how we can apply it. Primarily AHP is applied into 4 steps. You can just see in the screen. Step number 1, you just see that the structuring the problem. As I told you that in this particular step, what we do is that whatever our problem is, we structure that problem into hierarchy. I'm just taking the same example of human capital, that the problem is, I again just elaborate that the problem is that human capital of a firm can be represented by a number of variables. These variables can be education, these variables can be training, education, training, skills, stability, health, a lot more. For example, we have the 9 dimensions of human capital, and every dimension has the sub-dimensions. So what we want to see that what is the relative priority or the relative contribution of each dimension. For example, the education is more important, or the training is more important, or the skills are more important. So for example, if I want to select the top 3 dimensions of human capital, so I can get to know. So the likewise, what are the most important sub dimensions? So for this problem, we are going to fix in our this particular example. So the first is structuring the problem. In the problem, we just put our goal at the top, which is the human capital. Then we'll put with the goal, then there are the dimensions, as I earlier told, that there will be coming the dimension of human capital, education, experience, trainings and all that. You can just see that the dimensions are appearing. Then bottom of the dimension, there would be the sub dimensions of each. So this is the step number 1, that what we have done is we have converted a problem into hierarchy. This is structuring the problem, step number 1. Step number 2 for AHP is the pairwise comparison. Pairwise comparison is that since we want to prioritize, that we want to see that what are the relative priorities of each dimension. So what we have to do, we have to compare each dimension with the rest of all of the dimensions, right? And the same way each sub-dimension with the rest all of the sub-dimensions. So for that, we need to develop a kind of a questionnaire. Of course, normally in the software, this questionnaire is automatically developed. But the point is that how this questionnaire will be developed and what kind of scale would be used for the pairwise comparison. So here it comes the important thing. In fact, Saaty, I must of course commemorate my sincerest gratitude, and of course I must give my bow down to Dr. Saaty, who has just died last year, the founder of this AHP technique. So Saaty has in fact given a kind of scale. Once he was giving this technique in 1980 perhaps, he gave a 9-dimension scale, which is from 1 to 9. The scale is appearing behind the screen, you can just see. So this 9-dimension scale is in fact telling us the 1 is for the equal importance and 9 is for the extremely importance. So we can use this 9-dimension scale. So 9-dimension scale is used in a way in a bipolar kind of questionnaire. For example, at one end we have the education, and then we are comparing education with rest all of the variables: education versus experience, education versus skills, education versus training, education versus stability, and all more. So so education is at the one end, and then the rest of the variables are at the other end. So we are just going to compare it with the help of this 9-dimension scales. Okay, then first education is compared, then experience is compared, then other factors. So in this way, we are comparing each dimension of this human capital with rest all of the dimensions. So this is how we do the pairwise comparison. So this would be for the dimensions. The same way we'll be doing for the sub-dimensions, but the sub-dimension will be compared with each other. For example, the sub-dimension of education would be compared only with itself. We have for example 3 sub-dimension of education: quality of education, level of education, year of schooling. So these 3 are being compared with each other. Likewise, the dimensions of experience, like organization tenure and the rest, all those which are appearing at back of the screen, these would be compared with each other. So the point is that the dimensions of the sub-dimensions of education are not being compared with the experience. They are just being compared with each other because they are representing the education, the same wise experience and all that. So in this pairwise comparison, using the 9 scales developed by Saaty, we develop a kind of a questionnaire for the pairwise comparison, which is the step number 2. And then this questionnaire is served to the experts. It means that normally in AHP, Analytical Hierarchical Process, the rating is being done by the experts. The experts are those who are ranking these questionnaires. Now here comes always a lot of time once I discuss with the people, they primarily ignore this important fact. Since experts, what AHP is doing, it is converting the qualitative judgment of the experts into a quantitative format. It's very important, again I'm repeating, it's very important to see that what kind of experts are you referring to, and how you have selected the experts, what's the way you have adopted. So that's why it's important to define elaborately, whether it's your research paper or it's whatever your research project, that who are the experts and how you have selected. Because this, what AHP is doing, AHP's all of the things are based on the experts. So unless you don't explain properly in detail that what kind of experts you have, and you also explain to the experts that what you're going to do, of course your all of the process can be onerous. It can be a problematic results, maybe that they may not be the reliable. So that's why after pairwise making the questionnaire and then going toward experts, so you have to give a detailed explanation of the experts and what kind of experts you have, what's their experience and how they are related to this particular issue, and then you will be explaining as well to the experts at what you're going to do, like you are going to compare X and Y for what a particular reason and all that. So once you have explained to the experts, that expert would be ranking your that particular pairwise questionnaire. And once the experts have responded to your questionnaire, here comes the step number 3. Now that all of the pairwise comparisons are converted into pairwise comparison judgment matrix. It's very important. A lot of time what happens is that the people, once we talk about the metrics or once we talk about the mathematics, people just get confused, or they say that, oh my god, this is something very complicated we're talking about. But believe me that this is not complicated at all. It's very simple. That what we do is that pairwise comparison which have been done by the experts, they are simply being converted into a square matrix. How they have been converted, I'll be explaining you in the next video, that even manually we can just see, but once we'll be using the expert choice software, it automatically does convert the step number 2 of the expert judgment into the pairwise comparison judgment matrix. This pairwise comparison judgment matrix is made for each dimension and each sub-dimensions for every respondent. It means that, for example, if I have the 5 respondents or 5 experts have responded my opinion, and I used a questionnaire, bipolar questionnaire, and I gave them, for example, I gave them a physical form, and once they have responded, so what I'll do, that I'll just take the response of the first respondent, convert that response into the pairwise comparison judgment matrix, right, for the dimensions, for the sub-dimensions, for each sub-dimensions. Like, so for example, in our case, we have the 9 dimensions and each dimension have the sub-dimensions. So in this case, for one respondent, we have the 10 pairwise comparison judgment matrix. Yes, 10. How 10? The top for the dimension, there will be 1 pairwise comparison judgment matrix, 1 for the education, 1 for the experience, 1 for the training, and some like this. Also 9 plus 1, there will be 10 pairwise comparison judgment matrix. So if we have the 5 experts, for every expert we are just converting his or her judgment into the pairwise comparison judgment matrix. So once we have this pairwise comparison judgment matrix, then each of this, of course it means that we have the 5 pairwise comparison judgment matrix P, C, J, M, S for human capital main dimensions, for human capital sub-dimensions. So now the point is that how to aggregate them, how to convert them into one matrix. So here the geometrical mean is used in order to consolidate all of the matrix, and with the help of the geometrical means, all of the pairwise comparison judgment matrix are converted into the consolidated pairwise comparison judgment matrix. So for example, if there would be the 5 persons, 5 respondents, so all of the pairwise comparison judgment matrix would be converted into one consolidated pairwise comparison judgment matrix with the help of the geometrical mean. So it means that at the end we'll be having the one pairwise consolidated pairwise comparison judgment matrix for the dimension, one for and one for each sub dimension. So at the end we'll be having the 10 consolidated pairwise comparison judgment matrix. So this all is happening in the step number 3. So in the step number 3, first the response is being converted into pairwise comparison judgment matrix. Then pairwise comparison judgment matrices are further being consolidated to make the consolidated pairwise comparison judgment matrix. And then in the further, this again in the step number 3, this all is happening. Then consolidated pairwise comparison judgment matrices are being calculated, or in order to convert them into a column metric or the vector, single vector, they are being calculated for the eigenvalues. Means that eigenvalues approach we are applying in order to convert that square metric into a single column metric, right? And this all technique you can just see that appearing it's left on the box, that how we are just converting that square matrix into the single column matrix. And this once the values which you can see at the end after converting the square matrix into the single column metric, which has been done with the help of the eigenvalues, these are the priorities of each of the dimensions. Now these priorities are being taken, they are being joined together, and in the step number 4, which is the synthesis or synthesizing the solutions, in which we are taking the priorities, just joining them together in order to synthesize the solutions. So in the step number 4, what we are doing is that all of the priorities of the dimension and sub-dimension we are joining together in order to get the solution of the problem. So in this way, what we are doing is, what we have done is I have just demonstrated you a kind of example through which we can apply analytical hierarchical process in order to prioritize the dimension and sub-dimension. So again, I just repeat, the step number 1 was structuring the problem into hierarchy. Step number 2 was developing pairwise comparison. Step number 3 was converting the pairwise comparison into pairwise comparison judgment matrices, and step number 4 is synthesizing the problem. Here in this whole process, one thing which we have to remember is the consistency ratio. That's normally has to be calculated. Is the consistency ratio is that we have to make sure that respondents or the experts were rational, or at least they were consistent while responding to our response. Means that for example, if they have preferred A over B and they have preferred B over C, so it means that they should prefer A over C. That's a principle of consistency you have studied in your mathematics class, maybe in the grade 4 or grade 5. So with the help of that consistency principle, we calculate the consistency ratio CR, and it should be less than 10% or 0.10 in order to see that the respondents are consistent in their particular while responding to our questionnaire. So this was a kind of a gist or a summary of the AHP process. In the next video, I'll take an example, and a very simple example, and we'll try to solve that example manually with the help of the MS Excel sheet in order to see that how we can just apply this by using a very manual Excel sheet to solve our problem. And then in the subsequent videos, we are just going to see that how we can apply the major or complex problems to solve by having the expert choice, which is the software of the AHP. So thank you very much for watching this video, and stay tuned with us. Thank you so much.